Jerry Lawler, now after 20-something years with a couple of hiatuses in there when they got a little sideways with each other, Jerry Lawler off WWE TV. Brian, as they say on Twitter, go.
I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
What's your opinion?
I'm a Jerry Lawler fan. I don't think, for my sensibilities, I haven't been a fan of his commentating in a while, but I'm not a fan of the commentating in general up there in WWE land. I wish there was a role for him in some way. I don't know what it would be. He's one of the greatest promos of all time. You got to think there's something to do with him. But then again, the last thing they want is someone who has improvisational skills, exhibiting those skills on TV in a way that could possibly make someone some money. So I don't know. I think he'll be busy. If he wants to work weekends, he'll have plenty of bookings for one thing or another.
God, he's already doing that. You can't get him to stay home. He pops up everywhere. He works almost every weekend, or at least he was up until just recently, because I was seeing him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't doing much. I mean, they had been shrinking his role slowly over the past couple of years.
But I mean, on independence and weekends and stuff.
Yeah. But
he does do that. But yeah,
there.
I know that I didn't, it wasn't enough to get me to watch the show because, I would, for a while, I would watch WWE TV if I heard that, like Lawler, when he had that program with Booker T, and they actually had matches that looked like wrestling matches. I watched that. And if something happened, and I watched his Hall of Fame induction, et cetera, but I heard recently everybody raving about how he had turned somewhat heelish again when they moved him over to SmackDown. And that was always Lawler's best, especially color commentary when he was a heel, and he's so quick and he's got just that brain with a million, one-liners, and he can pick up on things and just say things on the sperm of the moment. But I know everybody's time comes, but I was always of the opinion, don't replace somebody unless you have somebody as good or better than they are at what it is that they're doing. And I don't see that. I didn't see it with Jim Ross, and I don't see it with Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, that's not their philosophy. I mean, even like something like Howard Finkel, the best.
Yeah, well, there you go.
The best ring announcer of a generation, recognizable voice, the way he would announce, and new. I mean, it was always big. He was great. He didn't have the look they wanted. He didn't have the age they wanted. They killed him off TV.
So they put that horse-faced Lillian Garcia out there, and I think I might have met Lillian Garcia a time or two, and I'm not. But a ring announcer should never wear a miniskirt, for one thing. I'm sorry if it's sexist. I'm just not in favor of female ring announcers because they don't have that. I think Michael Buffer is fantastic. Yeah, I didn't think Bruce Buffer was worth a shit. I think Michael Buffer's fantastic. The Jimmy Lennons of the world, the Howard Finkels of the world, Lance Russell, when he was a ring announcer, he had his own style to it. But I just don't take a female ring announcer, especially in leather boots and mini skirts and high heels or whatever, just looks like they're there for eye candy, and they don't have the gravitas in their voice, or at least the ones that get hired. Maybe if they found an ugly one who could actually do the job, I'd like her. But it just looks like, well, no, seriously, because it just looks like they're putting a pretty girl out there because she's a pretty girl rather than, because it's the best person for the job.
There's been a few good female ring announcers. I thought Mike.
Give me the few.
Mike McGurk.
Well, okay. I don't know if I'm gonna put her in the Hall of Fame, but Mike, she's nice. And Leroy named her Mike because he always wanted a son. So that's
Is that true?
That's true. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just he couldn't see. They told him it was a son.
Well, maybe they were trying to humor him, but he wanted a boy. And as Lawler once said, his mother wanted a girl and his father wanted a boy, and they were both satisfied. But anyway, I digress.
You know what ring announcer I always liked? Dr. Tom Miller.
Tom Miller from Greensboro.
Yeah.
He was. I don't know. He was there when we got there, and he lasted for the first year or two, and then they moved him out. But I don't know if he ever fully got. He always looked at me like, I don't know what you're doing, when I'd try to take the microphone and do the announcement of the Midnight Express.
That's what you want, though. You want that reaction.
Well, yeah, but he legitimately, even after I'd done it a number of times, like, why are you doing this? What are you doing? Like, are you supposed to be doing this shit? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, the point is with Lawler and JR, and of course, Kevin Dunn came out and said, well, Lawler will always be the host of the Hall of Fame ceremony. So what does that mean? They're going to trot him out once a year, like after Dick Clark had the stroke on New Year's Rockin' Eve, and they tried to sugarcoat and say, well, his salary was so much they've decided to do away with the pregame show because they couldn't justify. Well, no shit, Sherlock. You're paying him a lot of money because he's one of the biggest stars in the business, and he's identified with your product and has been on the show for 20 years or whatever. He doesn't need to be on the pregame show. And I know you can't get other people over as long as the guy who's better than them is still around, et cetera, et cetera. But I just thought it's ageism, I think, and Kevin Dunn's always been responsible for that. He wanted to move JR out for years. They thought, it was like when TBS thought Flair was too old. They thought JR was too old or too Southern, or his look wasn't TV friendly, and they'd try to replace him. And every time they tried to replace him, people would fart at it. They would fart in the general direction of who was sitting in the chair. Because JR is still recognized. That's why now he does more announcing, I think, for more different sports, more different places than any announcer in the world right now. But, now the king is ageless. He doesn't look anywhere near his age. And he's kind of timeless, but they had to make up something.
It's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. And, I'm not the biggest JR fan, but him and Lawler had relationships with the listener, with the viewers of the program. And wrestling, the WWE has this like American Idol mentality as opposed to baseball or football. Baseball, Vince Scully retired this year. He had been broadcasting the Dodgers for over 50 years, maybe even 60 years. I forget exactly how long.
Well, he's 87, so easily.
Yeah, and you know what? People wanted him to stay because you have a relationship with the person that's talking to you each and every week. Lance Russell, timeless. Fans in Memphis, no one ever said, I'm sick of that fucking Lance Russell. Because you develop a relationship with the people that are telling you the story. Gordon Soley, the same thing. Every single sport you have that. With WWE...
Football. John Madden was not a young nor good-looking guy. Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America because he was the friendly and saintly grandfather that was all-knowing and was trusted and intelligent and could tell you what was going on in the world and make you feel good about it. Not some, pretty fluffy-haired talking head.
Yeah, I mean, Cosell had a wig that could talk. And the point is, you have all this shit, and then you just replace these guys, these voices that fans have relationships with, that fans instantly recognize, that it warms up the fans to hear these people each and every week for year after year, and you replace them with people that you determine are better looking because that matters to nobody but you. They have this guy, Byron Saxton. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He is dog shit as a fucking commentator.
Damn, that took a disturbing turn.
No, honestly, he is
a great guy, friend to furry woodland creatures. He's a piece of fucking dog shit.
I'm sure he's a very nice guy. There's not a single redeemable thing about him as a commentator. He is fucking god awful. You can't tell me that Lawler isn't better than him right now. And for whatever reason, whether they're going to say it's about salary, whether it's about age, whatever it's about, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Although I do have to say, if this is their policy where guys get to a certain age and they push them out, I can't wait to see when they push Michael Cole out. I can't wait to see who's going to be replacing him in that chair.
Listen, I wonder how old Michael Cole is now because, I did the pilot of SmackDown with him. He had just come to the company. And I like Michael Cole, and he's a nice guy too. I'm not gonna turn around and say he's a piece of dog shit as an announcer, although he doesn't have a lot of fans. But he was never a wrestling fan, and it was a slow learning curve. And also, he is of a mind to, for better or worse, to do what they tell him to do rather than actually try to call wrestling as a sport like it should be done. So, of course, his announcing is never going to have been as good as guys who were wrestling announcers and learned how to do that before, they got on WWE TV. But he's been there because that was 99. So he's been there 17 years now. And Kevin Dunn loved him because he had a real news background and he had been reported on the war and Gulf War #1 or whatever the case. And he had been on location with news stories. And But there was Kevin Kelly, who was a much better wrestling announcer and had been a wrestling fan for, most of his life and had actually done programs in Florida before he got there. And he was much more qualified and a much better wrestling announcer and much better at getting over the angles and the issues and the guys. But he didn't look, and I've never thought of Michael Cole as a goddamn second coming of, Brad Pitt or whatever, but he didn't look as good, according to, I guess, the Kevin Dunn and the folks in the studio, as Michael Cole did. So he kept getting, Michael Cole was Kevin Dunn's handpicked guy, and Kevin Kelly just knew a lot more about wrestling. So why should that matter when you're picking a wrestling announcer? It always happens. It's that, the bubble-headed bleach blonde that comes on at 5, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, the King is not hurting for money, folks. I can assure you nobody will be throwing any benefits for Jerry Lawler. And he's got the bar and grill going down there in Memphis on Beale Street. And he still goes out every weekend because he loves wrestling and he loves being involved and he loves going on the road. And he's still wrestling even after he died, which is amazing. That is another record that Jerry Lawler has broken. He has had more matches after his death than anybody else in the history of professional wrestling. Did you know that, Brian?
I had never thought of it, but it makes sense. Yeah.
Look it up. More after death.
Are him and Dundee still feuding on, shows around the Memphis area, Nashville area?
I don't know if they've had one recently, but I know that Burt Prentice ran, because remember the Lawler and Terry Funk match last October of 2015 in Jackson, Tennessee at the old Jackson Coliseum. That drew over 1,000 people, but it was beaten by a few months beforehand when he ran. The main event was Lawler and Dundee, and they drew like 1,800 people. I can't remember what it was, but yes, 40 years after their first match, that's still probably the biggest headline match that you can put on in the Memphis area is Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee.
Yeah, that says something.
And I've heard from some people, when I've been at a few of the local Tennessee independents over the past year, I've heard that a lot of people don't like to work with Dundee anymore because he wants to do too much. He wants to work too hard. He's only 74, so. And after he got the new knee put in, he's feeling really, he's saucy as ever. Dundee could wear anybody out. Spot shows in front of no people or the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum in front of 10,000 people. Dundee's matches, if you worked with him, it was like grabbing hold of the Tasmanian devil. He was stiff. Matter of fact, Ricky Morton said one time about Dundee, said, Bill, I wish you'd just haul off and punch me in the face as hard as you can. And Dundee said, why is that? And Ricky said, because your working punches are killing me. He was always stiff, but he didn't hurt anybody, but his cardio was ridiculous. The only person that I ever saw blow Bill Dundee up was Billy Robinson.
That makes sense.
And they were both in early 40s. At least at the time. But otherwise, Dundee was a Tasmanian devil.